We've seen an unusual amount of Iranian nationals trying to sneak in through our northern, not southern border, because President Trump's policies have closed the southern border. So our northern border, we've seen our arrests go up daily on Iranian nationals, and we have a good partnership with our Canadian partners that have been able to help apprehend them too. But it's worrisome because the amount of influx we see and the amount of connections we have when we capture the people that they have direct ties to the IRGC, which IRGC is not the regular army of Iran. The IRGC is the true believers of this radical regime. And fortunately, because of our strength zero policies that we have underneath President Trump, we're able to capture the individuals coming across.
So do we know if those people trying to come through the U.S.'s northern border are being directed by the IRGC, or are they people fleeing from Iran?
Most of the individuals have ties directly to the IRGC.
And that's Department of Homeland Security Secretary Mark Wayne Mullen with me yesterday on the surge of illegal crossings into America by Iranians all along America's northern border. Joining me now is former acting ICE director and former DHS Deputy Assistant Secretary Jonathan Fahey. Jonathan, good to see you. Thank you so much for being here. And Fox News reporting that nearly half of the Iranian nationals who were arrested along the border last year were released into the country during the Biden administration. Your thoughts?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing when you think about what's going on now, that the Biden administration was stopping Iranian nationals at the border. They were coming through ports of entry, and they were still releasing them into the country. It was truly stunning, and they were doing that with virtually anybody. What's also more concerning, though, during the Biden administration, because, you know, the border, everyone was going through, so many people were going through the ports of entry, there were still 2 million gotaways. So these were people that weren't willing to go through the ports of entry for some reason, even though they were letting them into the country. So that's almost a greater concern, is who was in that group and how many Iranians affiliated with the IRGC or anything else were in there. Thankfully, President Trump has shut down the southern border, and now, you know, that was a great interview with Secretary Mullen, where he's talking about what's going on at the northern border, but it just shows, you know, how effective President Trump was with the southern border.
Well, that's right. I mean, the southern border right now is secure. We were seeing, what, tens of millions of illegals coming through the southern border in Texas. That border I've been to 6 times, but the northern border in the process has become real porous and vulnerable, and that's where the Iranian bad actors are actually getting in and now being apprehended. Jonathan, Secretary Mullen also told me yesterday that a man with direct ties to Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps tried to enter the U.S. along with Iran's World Cup soccer team. This individual claimed to be the president of Iran's Soccer Federation, but he was denied permission to board a U.S. flight after a background check where direct IRGC connections were discovered. Watch this.
Most teams travel with around 120 people. That's their support staff, doctors, coaches, everybody else that comes along with them and their delegation. We accepted 53 individuals coming in. The rest of the individuals that Iran had tried to bring in also had direct ties to the IRGC and aren't their normal traveling group. So these games that Iran plays is unfortunately makes them an adversary that you can't trust. Everything that we do will be verified and not assumed. They tried to get somebody in yesterday that they were calling, he was supposed to be the president of the the soccer federation, and we didn't allow him to board the plane. Remember, the Iranian soccer team is actually based in Tijuana, and we fly them in the day before the game. Okay. The guy trying to get on the plane yesterday had direct ties to RGC. We're literally checking them as they get on the plane, as they get off the plane, in both places. We have a Customs and Border Protection agents that are there doing biometrics on them, so we know exactly who is coming in the country and leaving.
Jonathan, it's pretty incredible. The Trump administration defending travel restrictions put on the Iranian national team, who are now filing a complaint with FIFA.
Well, it's so important. I'm so glad they're doing this because the Iranians, again, can't be trusted. And remember, the IRGC has been designated as a terrorist organization, not just by this country, but by European countries. So that would be akin to somebody with ties to al-Qaeda coming in. And, you know, this would be certainly one of the easiest, cleverest ways to get people in the country is say they're part of the soccer team. And the World Cup's important. I'm not trying to diminish it, but national security is so much more important, particularly in this day and age with what's going on with Iran. And we know the IRGC in many respects is trying to sabotage the deal with the Trump administration and Iran. So wouldn't this be the perfect way not only to harm Americans, but also to do that as well? So I'm so glad they're on top of it. And a lot of these people, yeah, if we don't know they're here for a legitimate reason, the default should be keep them out, keep Americans safe. And the Iranian team still gets to play, and they're getting to play. So it's really not harming them at all, but it's, again, game after game with the Iranians, not only with this, but almost everything they do.
Well, the DHS is now scrapping plans to turn 7 multi-million-dollar American warehouses into ICE detention facilities. That plan faced multiple lawsuits calling on judges to halt the project as Democrats ramp up calls to abolish ICE and stop deportations. California Congressman Ro Khanna was with me last week, and he had real ideas about what the Democrats actually want at this point. Watch this.
Most Americans want secure borders, but they also don't want ICE agents roaming around in libraries, roaming around in our communities, going after American citizens or going after those who are undocumented but are paying taxes and working hard. And what the Democrats have said is that we need a different immigration agency that actually goes after the criminals, that goes after the drug traffickers, that goes after the sex offenders, and doesn't harass ordinary Americans or undocumented folks who are working hard and paying taxes in the streets.
Jonathan, your reaction?
My jaw almost hit the floor because, you know, the Democrats fight deporting criminals. They're the ones that support these sanctuary cities that keep criminals in the country. It's really breathtaking that you hear this. And one thing that's really important, you cannot have a secure border if you don't deport illegal aliens, if you don't have ICE, because the greatest draw for the illegal aliens during the Biden administration is they knew once they got here, not only would they not be deported, they would be treated almost better than American citizens. But the Trump administration is deporting criminals. That's the amazing thing about it. 60 to 70% of the people being deported have criminal charges or criminal convictions, and they're not going into libraries and schools and all these false narratives the Democrats are pushing because they want to delegitimize immigration enforcement, because they want open borders and they want mass amnesty. Because why don't they ever have an example of ICE running up in a library, running up in a school? Because it doesn't happen, and it hasn't happened, but they continue to push these narratives, not for legitimacy, but because their political agenda, their political future is tied to mass amnesty and open borders. And they've really staked so much ground on this issue that they're not about to give it up.
Yes, good point. Jonathan, great to have you this morning. Thank you. Jonathan Fahey this morning. We will take a break and also come right back with more on the breaking news of the morning. Former chairman of the Federal Reserve, Alan Greenspan, is dead at 100 years old. We'll be right back.